Hello and welcome to Curiosity Chronicles. I had an actual request to do this video. In my Virginia Gouffre video, I mentioned a woman that I knew who I believe faked her death. And a couple people actually reached out to me and said, we're going to need to hear this story. So here it is. I do have notes to keep me on track because there's a lot and I didn't want to forget anything. So I wrote everything out just in case. I'm not going to use names or dates or anything that would help anybody identify this woman because I believe her privacy is her privacy. If she faked her death, then we need to leave her alone. And if she did actually really truly die, then we need to also leave her family alone. So yeah, I knew her for quite a long time. And when I say I knew her, it was like, I live in a small town, and when you just kind of end up knowing people of all demographics, socioeconomic backgrounds, things like that, simply because, say, like the richest kid in town might play soccer with the poorest kid in town. So you end up sort of knowing people of all different varieties that you might not necessarily be friends with or hang out with, but you know them to say hi in the street kind of thing. I know she had a network marketing business, so I know I had in the past bought some things from her. So we've had conversations over the years that I knew her and that she was alive. So I'm just going to give you some background information, and there's a point to this. So I know that she lived in low-income housing with her children, and I don't know if her children had the same dad or if there were a few dads in that situation. None of my business, so it's not like I was going to ask her or anything. I do know that there were quite a number of men over the years that I knew her. I probably knew her for 10 or 12 years, maybe. And like I said, to say hi in the street, or order something from, I can't even remember what network marketing company she had, but I knew I had ordered some stuff from her. I know that she was engaged a few times over the years to different men. I don't think she married any of them. And I know that she worked. I know where she worked. And it wasn't that she didn't try. I know that she worked very hard. But I just know that there are some people that just never get ahead because they can't. And then there's people who never get ahead because they don't want to. And that's okay. That's totally fine. I know somebody who not that long ago told me that her partner's getting frustrated that she won't invest and grow her money. And she's like, I don't need any more than I have. You know what I mean? So I get it. I do know that raising kids on one wage is hard. And I know that she did her best. And, she tried to be a good mom. She tried to care for her children, keep a roof over their heads, but also enjoy herself and her life as well. And the reason I kind of bring up all of that, and I'm sorry I'm rubbing my nose. It's allergy season. I'm dying. I can't even, every time I step outside, I just start sneezing and my eyes start watering. So if I start sniffing, that's why. And the reason I talk about a little bit about her background is because this is not like a bajillionaire faking her death to avoid having to lose everything in a divorce. This is not a situation that, that a lot of people, it's not like she was rich. It's not like she lived in a mansion. It's not like, you know what I mean? Like there's lives that you'd be like, why would you walk away from that? Her life was one that was pretty easy to walk away from if that is in fact what she did. So at one point she had been displaced by a fire, and I know that she was with a man at the time, but then at the time that she died, she was with another man, and there might be one in between, right? So I just remember her being like really friendly and outgoing and like to have a good time. So, there was always a boyfriend around. Absolutely. And so because she was so open on her socials, you could see everything that was going on. You knew when she broke up, you knew when she got it together, you knew when she got engaged. We all sort of watched this unfold on her socials. And I do know that the last man she was with, that we know, they lived in a small house together. In fact, not too far from me. The neighborhood I live in has a variety of types of houses. So there's, semis, there's big houses. I actually think I live in probably the biggest house. I may live in the biggest house in my neighborhood. And so there's all kinds of different houses of all sizes, all types, in this neighborhood. So one Sunday, she posted that her fiance was cheating on her. And I knew who this guy was. I knew him to see him. And I did see him all loved up with another woman that I didn't know. I don't know this other woman. A couple of weeks after the woman in question, her death. And her death was posted on social media. The person I'm speaking about, the woman I believe faked her death. So the man that she was with, I did see him with another woman a couple weeks later. So yeah, I think he was cheating on her. So not long after she posted about this man cheating on her, there was news that she'd been rushed to the hospital because she wasn't feeling well. And the story is that she was in the ICU on life support. Friends and family and loved ones were called to say their goodbyes, and the world was told she died a few days later. It's a pretty simple story, right? Happens. But there was a whole bunch of other things that made me curious, made me start to wonder, is there more to this story? So number one, it did seem a little bit convenient that right on the same day that she found out her man was cheating, she's rushed to the hospital. Now, I'm not saying it couldn't happen. I'm not saying that. But it just seemed helpful if somebody wanted extra sympathy or a more dramatic story to tell. So kind of like a I'll show you sort of moment. I know you know what I mean. I know you know what I mean. So I thought it was quite convenient that this all unfolded right after she found out this man was cheating. I could not find a single person who saw her at the hospital or was called to say goodbye. And I asked a lot of people. I was asking around because I was being a concerned community member, checking to find out how someone's doing. And even her best friend didn't get to see her. And I know her best friend as well. I kept seeing posts, though, that her friends and family were being called to say their final goodbyes. But I couldn't find anybody who did that. So which is kind of odd, right? Right? Like nobody actually got in there to see her. So from the outside looking in, you could maybe say, oh, that's kind of weird that nobody told her best friend to come and say goodbye. Or maybe it's something else. So it was reported on social media that she had died within a few minutes of her dying by someone who was not in the room when she died. And she said that the fiancé, the one who had been cheating, had contacted her to tell her, which seemed a bit weird, because if your like partner / fiancé, no matter what's going on, has just died in front of your face, is texting her friends the first thing you're thinking about? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, people do really strange things when someone dies, but this just seemed a little contrived. And I know that people do crazy things when people die. As I've mentioned probably in at least one video, I used to work in the funeral industry. I still am connected to the funeral industry. And I've seen things like, and I never judge because I know what's going on. I know that grief is driving the bus, but it's just some days we're like, oh, so this is what we're doing today. Okay. And I've actually had people call me at home to apologize. They'll call me and say, I'm so sorry I yelled at you at my mom's funeral, or I'm so sorry I snapped at you, or, whatever. And my response to that is, oh, well, you were at your mom's funeral. Like, grief was running the show, so I didn't take it personally. And the fact that you're calling to apologize tells me you didn't mean it personally, so we're good. Like, don't worry about it. Anything that goes on in that building, I don't take home with me. So don't think I take anything personally. So I've seen the most bonkers things go on at funerals and in visiting hours and things like that. So when people do crazy things, I'm like, I don't judge how people behave when someone dies, when someone close to them dies. So there's that. But, and I, you know what, and I am totally prepared to be completely wrong about this. And if that is the case, if I am 100% wrong on this, that's really sad, because then this like woman in her 30s died and left her children and her loved ones and her friends. Like, if that is the case, I don't think it is though. I don't think it is. Okay. To make the post about her dying even stranger, the exact time of her death was included. And I'm not saying people never do that, but I've just never seen it done that way. Like, I've never seen it. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I've just never seen it. And we see the time posted like in birth announcements. You know, little baby Smith was born on, you know, May 19th at, you know, 12:42 p.m. Like that you see, you know, came into the world. We get those sorts of things, but not, I've never seen anybody posting the time of death of somebody. So I thought that was just such a very specific thing to include in a post, saying, just letting everybody know that our friend has died. And that I thought that was a little bit curious, because it does sort of sound like what you would say in a TV show, like on ER and the medical shows. When someone dies, they actually say out loud the time of death. And if I know we've all heard that. So my question to you is, if you've had a loved one die, were you concerned about the exact time of death? You know what I mean? Like, if you were there, were you like, oh, I have to tell everybody the exact time of death? Or if you weren't there, were you concerned about the exact time of death? So that's a question for you, because, you know, I know people in my family who've died. I've never asked for the exact time of death. You know, it was like around 10 o'clock, around 7 o'clock. Like I didn't need like, you know, 7:48 p.m. Like I don't know. But let me know in the comments, because I'm very curious if you've ever seen somebody posting the time of death before, or if you think that's a little odd too. So let me know. And all of these things individually might not seem that weird, but combined, it looks like somebody was trying to craft a very believable story. Like, you know, when somebody is lying and they give so many details that you're actually like, oh, there's the giveaway that you're lying, is you included way too many details. And I know you know what I'm talking about, because I know you're very clever and I know you spot these sorts of things too. So that's why you're here. That's why we talk about these things here. But let me know what you think about that, the posting of the exact time of death within minutes of her dying, by the way. That I was like, like it was like the grief Olympics, got to be first, you know? So after her death was reported, there was suddenly a GoFundMe set up the same day, the exact same day, within a couple hours. And somebody was also asking for donations of clothing for this woman's children. And even the sizes of the children were included. Like, each one listed all the sizes. And it wasn't that they were trying to get nice little outfits for the children to wear to the funeral and the funeral events. No, it was just regular everyday clothes they wanted donated. But why would they need clothes? Like, why would they not just continue wearing the clothes they have in their closets? Yeah. And I get it. Children grow and they need new clothes. They wear out, things like that. But still, they didn't suddenly need all new clothes just because their mom died. And I just thought that was a little curious. Just a little weird. I don't know. I was like, Not sure about that one. And it wasn't like they were taking donations to buy things for the funeral and things like that. It was just regular everyday clothes. So I'm like, I wondered, like, what happened to the clothes they already had? And, there's times like, and it happens even in every community, I'm sure. It's happened here a number of times where a house burns down, family loses everything, and everybody pitches in, donating money and belongings and things for them to rebuild a life. But if the children had been taken to a relative, say, like, why would they not be able to take their own belongings with them, their clothes and their toys and books and whatever else? Like, what would have prevented that? So I'm just going to leave that there. I'm going to leave that question there because, yeah, they had a home. They had a home not too far from me. And the children would have had bedrooms and clothes and everything else. So that one just, I don't know. So I started checking the local funeral home websites for a death notice, because at this point now I'm like, something's up. Something is definitely up. And a couple weeks went by, nothing appeared. So I started doing broader searches and I was Googling like crazy. I was really trying hard to find a notice anywhere in Ontario, and nothing. I couldn't find a thing. There was nothing. So I reached out to some of this woman's friends. Again, small town, everybody kind of knows everybody. And I just asked, like, what funeral home is handling her funeral so that I can send flowers? And when is the funeral? Because I would like to come. No one knew. No one had any information. Nothing. Like, not even, oh, there's not going to be a funeral. It was just, no, people are like, we don't know. We don't have any idea. So I tried asking which funeral home I could take a donation to. I asked different people where I could take a donation. And I kept getting told, donate to the GoFundMe. And so I would say, well, I don't like using that site. Which is true. I don't really, I don't understand GoFundMe. Like, just go to the bank and set up a trust account and let people just EMT money in, right? Or e-transfer for the people who don't know what EMT is. I'm just not a GoFundMe kind of person. Knock yourself out if it's your thing. It's not my thing. But so I was saying, well, I would prefer to just write a check and take it to the funeral home and give it to the funeral director to handle. And when I worked in the funeral industry, that was one of my jobs, was taking care of all the checks. So I know how it works, and nobody had any information. Not a tiny little snippet of anything. And yes, I know it is possible to not have a death notice on a funeral home website, but this woman was the type who would want everyone to know. She broadcasted her whole life for everybody to see, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it, every moment of it. And if the family didn't want the whole town showing up, because sometimes what happens is people, they have a budget, they have a limited amount of money to feed people afterwards. So they're like, we can't have 500 people show up. Like, I got money for 50, sandwiches for 50 people, and that's it. Right. So sometimes families just don't want the whole town showing up. Also too, if there's issues and you don't want, like, I led a funeral a couple years ago, and the mother, it was a guy who killed himself, and the mother she was adamant that the public not be there. She wanted to control who was there because there was some drama around it. And so she didn't want any issues or problems at her son's funeral. So I get it. But when that happens, often we still put a notice up on the website and we just say private family arrangements. And then the family can control who's going to be there and not be there. So that was a little interesting to me. There's still nothing. And then a month or two after this woman died, I saw a handwritten letter posted, the photograph of this handwritten letter posted on Facebook, letting people know there would be a celebration of life and they would be taking donations. And I found it really, really interesting that this was being held in a whole other town, not the town the woman lived in and raised her children in. And given the socioeconomic dynamics around this woman who died, it might not have been easy for her friends to get to this whole other place, this whole other town, which isn't exactly close. Like, you couldn't walk there. So there was still no funeral home notice, even if it says private family arrangements or arrangements to follow or anything like that. A lot of people will then go back to the funeral home and say, can you add this information to the funeral home notice? I've done it for families. And when my own mother-in-law died, that's what we did, because one of their best friends was away and wouldn't be back for a few weeks. So we had to plan the funeral for after he got back. And so I made all the arrangements with the funeral director. And then once we decided what day we would actually have, we had a celebration of life. It's just, they're all funerals to me. Anybody in the funeral industry is like, whatever, they're all funerals. Just calling it a different name doesn't change anything, really. Like, I've had people say, no, we don't want your funeral service. We want your memorial service. And I'm like, well, they're the same thing. So I'm like, oh, okay. And then it's the exact same kind of service. So, just so that you know, when you're asking ministers and celebrants and officiants to do things and you're trying to make them sound like it's not what it is what it is. So there's still no funeral home notice. And I don't know anybody who went to this celebration of life in this whole other town. And yes, I did ask around. I did ask. I was really hoping that someone could confirm that this whole story was true. Not because I wanted this woman to be dead, like, absolutely not, but because I wanted to know that people weren't being scammed. And like, if all of her friends and family were in on it, fine. Knock yourselves out, put on your show. Good for you, right? But what my concern was that there were strangers or people who just kind of slightly knew her, who believed the story and maybe had donated money for her children and things like that, believing that she had actually died. So I'm not saying I'm 100%, this is it. There's no negotiating on this theory that I have. But when we add it all up, like, something definitely is a little bit fishy, right? Like, am I crazy? I feel like there's just something, when I kind of added all this up and I watched this, I realized, oh my goodness, she's faked her death. And I spoke about this to only one person. And it's a woman in town who knew a bunch of this woman's friends. She had a career that put her in a lot of people's faces. So she knew a lot of people that knew this woman as well. And when I laid this out for her, even she started to wonder. Like, she was like, wow, yeah, that, like, she's like, I believe she died, but now I'm hearing you talk and I'm starting to think, what? Why? Yeah, your story does not add up. And I'm like, right? So she actually started asking some questions. When clients of hers were friends of this woman, and so she just, like, sort of casually asked, like, oh, did you go to the funeral? Like, blah, 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 blah. And she couldn't get any information either. No one knew a thing. I tried to find out, like, where's the cemetery so I could leave some flowers, anything, nothing. And I tried hard for months and months and months. So that is the story, basically. And I'll say, you know what? I do actually hope she pulled this off. I hope I'm right. I hope she pulled this off. And I hope that she got herself and her kids out of this town and off to some other place where she could reinvent herself, start a whole new life. And you know what? I hope she started the life she desired. I hope that's what she ended up with, a much better life than what she had here. And, like, if I was in some random town and I bumped into her, I would probably just smile and wink and keep on walking. And if I found out, like, say if her family came to me, sees this video and comes to me and says, girl, you got it right. Yeah, you nailed it. I still would never say. This is the only time I'm ever going to talk about it publicly. I would never, ever, ever say one way or the other if I found out. Like I said, if I did bump into her, I would never say. I would never reveal her secret. I would just, in my mind, I'd be like, good for you, girl. Good for you. You did it. You did it. So what do you think? Do you think it sounds like she actually died? Or would you be wondering too? Would that have you, like I always say, like my ears perked up like a little meerkat? Would you be wondering too? Would you be in meerkat mode as well? Like, what's going on here? Right? So let me know and I will meet you in the comments. Have a great day and stay curious.